Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mark Bruce with Fit Strength Performance, and today I'm coming at you with another episode. And today, on this Wednesday night, we'll be pushing this out on Thursday. I am going to talk about how many times per week should athletes lift. Now, this is something that's common. It's come up a lot in conversation with athletes, with parents, with coaches. Um, so I'm going to dive into it. And the number one answer is going to be it depends. How many times a week should an athlete lift? It's always going to depend. There isn't a perfect number. And a lot of it's going to depend on the athlete's goals. So I have a few points that I'm going to touch up on as far as my beliefs, what research says, what my experience has led me to believe is ideal and optimal for athletes. So I have 4 points to touch on to really determine how many times an athlete should lift. So, number one, in season or off season. Is the athlete in season or the off season? And I know this is a tricky question and something to think about because in most sports nowadays, the season's all year long. So that's the question of if you're in your modified, your varsity JV freshman season, that's what I look at as in season because that's what really counts, right? That's where coaches are going to go see you. That's where you're really going to make a name for yourself, and that's what's going to really separate you from, your other opponents and your teammates is what goes on in season. So that's the question that I think about when I provide the answer of how many times a week should an athlete lift and work out. It's going to be whether they're in season or off season. Number two is going to be their biological and chronological age. So physically, how mature they are, as well as the age, will also allow me to provide a better answer as far as how many times a week should an athlete lift. And then, number three is going to be how many times a week are you playing your sport? What are you doing Monday through Saturday? So are you practicing 2 or 3 times a week? Do you have a private skills coach? Do you do other sports? Are you at a tournament every weekend? Because that's going to determine how many times a week should you be training and lifting, what that should look like so you're not getting injured. And then the last one, number four, is going to be your sleeping, your eating, those habits, how much water you're drinking, and then your mental health. We have to think about that because if you're someone that is chronically stressed, adding more is going to cause more issues. It's going to cause stress. It's going to cause some mental health difficulties. It's going to cause some soft tissue injuries. It could cause something even more catastrophic from like an ACL or something severe like that because your body just isn't into it. Your mind isn't recovered, and that's when we could see an aggressive injury. So when we look at this idea of how many times a week should athletes train, we have to understand various theories. We have to understand how the body works. And something that I've been diving into that's prevalent in the strength and conditioning world is this thing called this GAS theory, and that's a general adaptation syndrome. So general adaptation syndrome. What we have to understand is in order to see an adaptation, you're going to have this alarm phase, right? That means you're going to shock the body. You're going to provide this level of stimulus so your body can do something, right? So if you're looking at, if I'm deadlifting, I have to hit a certain intensity to shock my body so my body can respond and say, okay, I'm going to build muscle, I'm going to build strength, I'm going to build explosiveness, and then this will allow your body to recover so you can do it in your sport so you can have the benefit. And then there's this resistance phase. The resistance phase is a part of that shock phase where your body decreases in performance because you're tired, you're fatigued, and that's good, right? You need to experience a level of fatigue in order to let your body know that the body needs to do something. You have to have hormonal production. You have to have this recovery. You have to have this adaptation to get stronger, to gain muscle, to be more explosive. You have to change your fiber structure, things like that. Mechanically, your body has to move differently. And then there's this exhaustion phase. And in this exhaustion phase, it's inevitable to experience it. But the question is, are you always going into the exhaustion phase? Are you chronically there? Because if you're chronically there, then that's where you can get sick, you can get injured. So we have to be able to adapt and recover so you are better the next time you experience this alarm shock phase. Because if you're worse when you get to that phase again, you're going to perform worse and worse, and that's when you can get injured and things like that. So we have to understand that gas theory, because if you're continuously in the exhaustion phase, that's when your body breaks down. So when I'm thinking about how many times a week should an athlete lift, if I look at a middle schooler, personally, I think middle school athletes should be training anywhere from 1 to 2 times a week for anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of that typical strength session, working on squats, hinge, building stiffness in the tendons. So that means there's going to be a 15 to 20 minute segment of improving movement, learning how to get in specific positions, building the foundation. And then those middle school athletes, so 6th to 8th grade, they should be just out there playing, doing different things, learning different skills, playing pickup sports. That's why I don't think middle school athletes should be training 3, 4, 5 times a week in the weight room, because they should learn the foundation of movement in the weight room, doing athletic things, being a human, crawling, hopping, skipping, learning how to squat, hinge, push, and pull. But then they should be out there learning how to compete, learning how to fall and get up, learning how to deal with conflict with other athletes in a non-controlled situation. That's definitely valuable in them developing as a person and an athlete. Then if we look at high school athletes, if you're a novice high school athlete, I believe you should lift twice a week, because you're gonna get better if you provide enough stimulus, but you don't want to provide too much stimulus if you just started lifting, because then you could be crazy sore, you could see less adaptations. You can still get away with training 3 times a week, but you want that to be sub max. You don't want that to be crazy intense, because your body's just not used to it. So you want to ramp up. So novice athletes can go 2 times a week, and then once you hit that intermediate to advanced level, it should be 3 to 4 times a week. But this is based on, if we're in a perfect world, and when your season ends, you're done with club, you're done with AAU, you're done. You don't. We don't have that, but athletes do. So this is where it gets complicated. So when we look at this picture perfect model, I think athletes, when they get to that, 9th grade stage, they need to find pockets of training 3 times a week. And then when they get to their junior and senior year, they should ramp it up to 3 or 4 times a week. Because they're really going to be able to peak utilizing, the hormonal production, really ironing out as a man or as a woman, so you can take advantage of, the changes of the body. But you have to understand that the workout shouldn't be the same Monday through Saturday. You shouldn't lift heavy, 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 heavy every day. You shouldn't lift with crazy amount of intensity every single workout. My philosophy, and what a lot of people have adopted, is you have hard days, you have high intense days, you have these days that are very stimulant based, and then you have these light days, these low days, where it's more volume, it's more movement based, it's more aerobic capacity, or it's more low level plyos, things like that. Because too many times I see an athlete do a Monday through Friday lift, and it's a lot of volume, and it's as heavy as they can possibly go, and they play their sport 2 or 3 times a week. So this is where they're continuously in that exhaustion phase, and they don't see those adaptations, they break down. So when you have this training program, it needs to be this ebb and flow of intense days and low days. So that's why it's important to have someone programmed so it makes sense, and it isn't just something you found on the internet. So if I had to give you an answer, if you are a middle school athlete from 6th to 8th grade, I believe you need to train 1 to 2 times a week. and then we build that foundation. We learn how to move. We get in these athletic positions. We learn how to hinge, squat, push, pull, rotary stability, how to carry things, how to hop, skip, jump, crawl, all those great, things that athletes and humans need to do. And then once you get to that 8th, ninth grade, you ramp it up to 2 or 3 times a week, where we're using the hormones that are starting to go through your body to really develop these adaptations, whether it's gaining muscle, getting bigger, gaining weight, or it's getting stronger, getting more dense, improving tissue health, improving your mechanics, your joint health, moving better. So it's applying to your sport. And then when you get to that junior, senior year, you should be training 3 to 4 times a week. But those programs, those workouts should have heavy, heavy, hard days, fast, fast, fast days, and then you should have some light days where it's more volume based. And if you're someone that starts in 6th or 7th grade training, let's say in 6th and 7th grade you train 1 time a week all year round, then in 8th grade you go twice a week all year round, and then 9th to 12th you train twice a week all year round. Right there, you have 7 years where you're training 2 times a week. So if you do the math, that's like 700 sessions. You can't tell me that you will not be better as a person, as an athlete, experience less injuries if you followed that path. So it's a great question. It's something that everyone should be curious about, and providing your athletes, your teams, your players with, comprehensible, helpful information, so athletes are providing themselves with the right stimulus in order to get that adaptation and get that result. So that's my answer to the whole idea of how many times a week should an athlete be training. Again, it depends, but in a perfect world, middle school should be 1 to 2 times a week. High school should be 2 to 4 times a week, but the program should have hard, intense days and then light days. Thanks for tuning in. Please share, comment, like, pass this on to a teammate, to a coach. It really helps us, let people know what we're doing at Fit Strength, and it also helps other athletes answer some of their questions, and help them get on the right path to achieving their goal, and reaching optimal performance. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you next time.